Hey guys, we're going to do a quick cloud tutorial. So you'll need your canvas and your brushes. I want to get a little bit larger brush for the background. So grab your supplies, make sure you have a cup of water and everything ready to go. Okay, so first things first, get a little tiny palette, and remember, always take the smallest amount of paint, just because we can always get more. Now, I'm going to start with the Brilliant Blue and just a tiny bit of phthalo. I might give you a different palette just because these tubes, there's not a lot of them. So let's see, you will need titanium white, and it looks like there's no umber in this set. Normally I would mix one with red and green. Let's just experiment with using a small hint of black, which I don't normally do. So dampen your brush. You don't want it to be super wet. I just want it to be moist enough to spread the paint around. So I'm probably going to need more paint, but less is more in the beginning. So remember, this is not watercolor, this is acrylic. If I put it on really thin like this, it looks like watercolor. So I'm just going to get it going. I'm going to need quite a bit more paint than this. So normally I'll mix up my colors on the palette. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some blue down first. So this is the Brilliant Blue Liquitex color. It's when you mix it with white, it can make that really natural cerulean blue, but you can take the Liquitex Basics regular blue, the primary blue, and mix it with white and get the same color. So I am putting on, somewhat opaque layer. I'm being, I'm being very sparing with the paint here. So see how far I can stretch it. It's a small canvas. You do not need to squirt out like a quarter-size blob, but that just goes in the trash, and that is just like dollars going in the trash can. So I am going to darken the horizon, so I've just picked up a tiny bit of white. Again, I'm working with a minimal amount of paint just to see how far we can spread it, because we can always get more. So I'm just creating a blue background gradient for our clouds, like a horizon. It's going to need a lot more white. And then there's no black in here, so I've just put a tiny bit of black on my brush. I'm going to pollute the tub a little bit, dirty it up, just make it look more natural. We don't want this to be oversaturated. We definitely need more white. So again, look at how small my little blob is. Just a tiny little blob. I can always get more. This box is, I think it's around $100 for this box, so don't want to waste any of it. So I'm just going back and forth, blending my gradient. We want it to look natural, like a horizon. I'm just going to use this to practice some clouds. I would prefer it to stay a little bit wet. Grab the rest of my white. You get it on the table, just wipe it off afterwards. You can always put newspaper underneath your canvas and just throw it away afterwards. You don't have to clean the desk, but it's not okay to leave paint on the desk. I noticed that some students do that, and it damages other people's artwork that come in that are not painting. Keep the tables as clean as possible. looks a little bit darker in the video. I'm going to clean my brush off a little bit, get the blue off of there, and add some more white to the bottom. Just a teeny tiny bit. If you wanted to add a little tiny landscape to the bottom just to give it some perspective, I think that would be kind of fun. If you wanted to add a little bit of warmth to the bottom, we could do that as well. I'll put a tiny bit of yellow. Don't want it to turn green, but it's something that could happen, but I can always paint over it with yellow and white again. I'm gonna mix white and yellow. I will paint close to the bottom. We can always put a little landscape later on that overlaps. Okay, I could go lighter, but I'm going to stick with this as my gradient. And clean off my 1-inch brush because I do not need it anymore. Now, I do like to play around with 3 different types of brushes for this, the square brushes and the round brushes. So let's mix up a cloud color. Now we do use a little bit of black and a little bit of white. And you want to play with scumbling and letting it dry, adding highlights to the edges. You can observe some of the images of clouds that I've provided for you. And let's see, let's play with a square brush. I'm going to try a small square brush. This is a very small space. I usually work very large, so let's see what happens. So remember, looking at the notes and stuff that are in the website, your clouds at the top will be larger and they will get smaller towards the horizon. So we just want to play with positive and negative space. That's really what clouds are. So I like to start off just kind of like back and forth, like it's fuzzy cotton candy, And I am a little rough on the brush when I'm doing this. I'm just kind of jabbing at the canvas, feeling it out, and thinking about which angles I can go at to create my clouds. Now, I'm not really worried about value at the moment. I'm really just shaping the clouds. And if there's ever a part that I don't like, I can always go in with the background color and reshape it. I'm going to go for a slightly larger brush. just because this one is taking me a minute. So if this is your first time doing this, I have done this probably a million times, and it's a different experience every time. So there's nothing wrong with saying, this is not working, I'm just going to paint over it. Right now, if you didn't like it, just take your 1-inch brush, blend it all in. It'll look great. It'll be the right colors. And then start your clouds again. Okay, I kind of have to feel out the space first because we're working with a small space. I feel a little overcrowded, but I think I'm going to commit to what I have, and I don't always have to do that. I can change my mind later. It's paint. Okay, so I am going to go smaller. And I haven't put any of the details in yet. We're just forming positive and negative space. I mean, I am kind of playing around with light and dark, figuring out, like, where's my light source? If I'm going to have it on the top, which parts of the clouds want to look closer to us. Think of them as, like, just a bunch of spheres, like, is this going to be the top? Is light going to be hitting that, or is light going to be hitting this part that's protruding out a little bit closer? Like, do I want another one of those here? Do I need to add more gray? There's no gray in this at the moment. Really, there's no rules. You can figure it out each time. Okay, so I need to clean my brush off because that's a little bit blue. I would like them to become lighter towards the bottom. I'm going to have to work with what I have down here in the paint. So I'm going to make them thinner and smaller. Now I don't really have a vanishing point. I'm just doing kind of flat, and sometimes it's nice to angle. I started angling at first at a diagonal angle, and then these have become very straight, and that's okay. If I try to re-angle them, I might lose some of my space that I've created, like that. Trying to re-angle it up, probably not such a good idea. So that has a little bit of this yellow color in it, so I'm gonna reactivate some of this blue-black that I have over here on the side. If it doesn't reactivate, then just make more, or, look at that. Let's see what happens. Give me some blue. Let's, add some gray to that. Not too much. We can always go back with the white. You're just playing, okay? I want this to be relaxing. I want it to be fun. You're just playing with the clouds. So maybe you don't like the gray. Maybe I don't like the gray. I don't know. Let's just keep going. Just blend it a little bit more. So yeah, this probably should be more pure white over here. Let's clean off our brush. Let's see what we have left. I'm going to switch to the smaller brush, and I use square brushes just because I feel like they give me a nice edge on the clouds. So I've got this little tiny bit of white right here, and I'm just going to go in and see if I can. And maybe we should barely be able to see these, because if you have land below, this would not look like that. So you can just start kind of streaking them in if you want, because they're going to have to be far away. There's a little hair in my paint right there. Okay, so I kind of like some of these shapes that we're forming here. I do not have that color mixed, so if I did want that color, I'm going to have to remix it. That's just a start. It's only been 15 minutes, so you can let this dry. You can paint over it. You can do whatever. You can start adding highlights, give them some form. And your background could be warm colors. This is just standard. We can have a lot of fun with analogous warm colors. There's so many different times of day and lighting types, complementary blends with like purple and like champagne orange. There's so many beautiful colors that we can make to like where light is hitting the clouds and the sky is like a light gray lavender purple, and then the clouds are peachy. You know, there's all these color combinations, and we want to look at actual photos of clouds at different times of day in order to study that. So we can continue this. This is something that you can play around with and do so many different color schemes. Okay, I'm going to stop the video, and I'll just see you in class.